Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Martinsville Speedway, the paperclip, one of the most entertaining tracks that we go to on the schedule. And this race, this weekend, we determined who was going to the championship for and who would be left on the outside looking in. And yesterday, one of the drivers came in a must-win situation and got the job done, while behind him, the video game move of the century. Not of the year, of the century. Let's get into all that went down yesterday in Martinsville. Number one, Christopher Bell, a walk-off win. The second time he's done it this year. Christopher Bell pulled off a walk-off winning yesterday's Xfinity 500 at Martinsville Speedway to lock himself into the championship four, holding off Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, and Denny Hamlin for the win. Christopher Bell came into this race in a must-win situation. The first couple of races so far in these playoffs, the race run again at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, he was an innocent victim of a wreck that he did not deserve to be a part of, the Kyle Larson Bubba Wallace incident at the start of Stage 2. He went to Homestead last weekend thinking this is an opportunity because it's a lot like a dirt track. You can run up against the wall, you can run wherever you want to, and that track certainly seems to favor his driving style. Well, they weren't really a contender at all last week, and they ended up finishing in the top 15, which is good, but it's not enough. Then he came into Martinsville thinking, we gotta win. Well, starting 20th, I thought was going to be a little bit of a challenge for them because we saw in the spring race, nobody could hardly pass because there wasn't enough rubber put down the track. But yesterday, there was rubber on the track the entire day that we were able to put rubber down the track, and Christopher Bell kept passing guys. It was like a slow start, and then as we got to the end of Stage 1, he found himself in the 11th spot. I'm like, he's coming to the front. He's got a pretty good race car, and then got himself to the top 5 by the end of Stage 2, and I'm thinking, now he's in the game. And at the start of Stage 3, he took off like a rocket ship and went straight to the lead, and that car was just absolutely flying. Even though he had a couple of challenges at times in the race, it looked like he was going to run away with it all. Then with 34 laps to go, a caution came out for the 77 of Landon Castle, hitting the wall in 3 and 4, which brought everybody to pit road. Christopher Bell took 4 tires, while some cars in front of him took 2 tires, and 2 others stayed out. One of them was trying to win the race. I'll talk about it in a little bit. But Christopher Bell wasted no time, and in the final 20 laps kept moving his way to the front, had to bump a couple guys out of the way that were on 2 tires or on old tires, and got to the back bumper of Chase Briscoe with 7 laps to go and passed him for the lead. And when he got by him, I knew right then and there it was all over and he was on his way. And Christopher Bell has punched his ticket to the championship 4 with the win. He was very emotional in his post-race interview. He said, "Mom, Dad, we did it. We're going for a championship." That's just the thrill of being a really young guy who has fought so hard to get to this point in his career. I mean, what a journey this kid has had. Started in the racing in dirt racing. He did dirt racing. He did, the Knoxville Nationals, all those races. Then he made his first NASCAR start in 2015 at Iowa Speedway, driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and had a really solid run, finishing in the top 5. Then he would go on to win his first ever truck race, I believe, or I think it was Iowa actually that he won his first truck race. He did win a race or two in 2015. One of them was the Eldora Dirt Race, and that led him to a full-time opportunity in 2016, where he made the championship 4, and he had a couple of nice wins that season. Then in 2017, he made it back to the championship 4 and won the championship. Then the next 2 years, he drove in the Xfinity Series in 2018 and 2019. Both years, very strong caliber driver for the championship. Unfortunately, wasn't able to win both of them, fell behind Tyler Reddick. But he got his big opportunity in 2020 when he's promoted to the Cup Series full-time to drive for Levine Family Racing and a satellite, alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing. He had a pretty good season that year, didn't win a race, didn't make the playoffs, but still had some bright moments, including a 3rd place finish at Texas Motor Speedway. And it was announced in the middle of the season that he would be moving to Joe Gibbs Racing full-time for the Cup team in 2021, replacing Eric Jones. And in race 2 at the start of the season, he won the Daytona Road Course, which replaced Fontana. We couldn't go there because of COVID restrictions. Christopher Bell won that race after battling hard all day with Chase Elliott and passing Logano late for the lead with fresh tires, and went on to win his first Cup race. That locked him into the playoffs. He got eliminated in the round of 12, but it was still a good year for him. And in year 2 this year, I felt like he needed to step it up. At the beginning of the year, they weren't running that well. But then as the summer came, they started to hit their stride, and he got his first win of the season at Loudon, New Hampshire, at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, holding off Chase Elliott. And then, when the playoffs came around, he remained consistent to advance. Then the round of 12 came, and he was in a must-win situation entering the Roval because of the points that he lost based off of the pretty rough performance at Texas. He had a decent run at Talladega, but it wasn't enough. He came into the Roval knowing he needed to win, and it looked like he wasn't going to do it, but then a caution fell late, it came in for tires, and he just drove straight to the front, past everybody, and went on to win the race and lock himself in the round of 8, and that's how he got to the round of 8, and how he got to the round of 4, the championship 4, was how he was able to overcome adversity in this round to get in. But a big job by Christopher Bell and the entire 20 team. They're now off to battle for a championship next week in Phoenix. So big round of applause to the 20 team for a really impressive walk-off win. Number 2, Ross Chastain, video game move of the year. Bonsai move, shall we call it. Ross Chastain on the final lap pulled a bonsai move in 10th place by literally riding the wall like at least 50 miles per hour more than you would have been when you were running the bottom groove in 3 and 4 or 1 and 2. Ran the top lane, the wall, all the way around and past 5 guys to get to 4th place and lock himself into the championship 4. I mean, you look at this car. You look at that car. I can't believe what he did. I'm still trying to wrap my head about what I witnessed from him yesterday. Ross Chastain came into this race above the cutoff by 19 points. You'd think if he gets some stage points, that's a good cushion for him. And he got those stage points. But when Christopher Bell took the lead, they put him behind as far as points go because also Denny Hamlin was running really strong. And the closing laps of the race, Ross Chastain was just kind of deep in the pack. And I'm thinking, unless there's something weird happens and it involves him, he's not going to make it to the championship 4. It's going to be too little too late. He had some nice battles in the final restart of the race with Denny Hamlin. They were just banging off each other. They were bumping into one another. And like, you know, they've had their problems this year, particularly Gateway. But they were racing hard, aggressive, but they didn't wreck each other, thankfully. It wasn't like, you know, too aggressive that pretty much forced NASCAR to, you know, to say, knock it off. But it was just good, hard racing. But he kept losing spots because Hamlin had fresher tires than he did. And Chastain at that point was like, it's like, you know, it's pretty much over. And then he decided to pull the bonsai move in 3 and 4, riding the wall, fastest ride against the wall at Martinsville I've ever seen in my life, and passed all those guys to finish at the 4th spot, which is just enough to move to the championship 4 and compete for the title next weekend. What a year it's been for him and this team, Trackhouse Racing. This is only their 2nd year as a cup organization. They started last year with 1 car in Daniel Suarez. Then they announced in the middle of the season they were acquiring Chip Ganassi Racing, which means they're acquiring their assets, their charters. They're opening a 2nd team, and Chastain was announced in August as the other driver. And early this year, Chastain got the team their first cup win as a cup team at COTA in a thrilling battle at the end between himself, Alex Bowman, and AJ Allmendinger. That was a finish for the ages for this year. And then he won at Talladega, had a really good race car there. He was very strong and made a nice pass in the tribal to take the lead and the win away from Eric Jones. And then the summer came as far as his run-ins with Denny Hamlin, and he lost a lot of momentum and confidence and had some other big moments, especially the Indianapolis road course race where he cut the corners, he took the lead, but lost the lead in the process because he had to give him back for cutting corners. But, you know, he's had, you know, moments in the summer where he just kind of looked aggressive, too aggressive, and kind of lost momentum. But he was able to gain it back with some good runs in the playoffs, and consistency allowed him to advance throughout these playoffs. And what he was able to pull off yesterday, I still can't believe what he did. I'm in shock. Like, he said, I needed to do what I needed to do, and he did it. And I just still can't believe it. Now, some of the drivers, like Kyle Larson, don't like what he did. I like Kyle Larson, but may I remind you, you tried to move like that last year in the Darlington race, trying to ride against the wall, trying to pass Denny Hamlin. It didn't work. He finished 2nd, but I think it was a move that he needed to do. Do what you gotta do. Do what's best for yourself and the team. I mean, he did what he needed to do, and it paid off. And Ross Chastain, with that bonsai move, is going to Phoenix to race for a championship. That is impressive. And this is a moment we're going to be talking about for years and years and years, folks. That was something else. Number 3, the 4 drivers that have officially been eliminated and will not compete for a championship next weekend are Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, and Chase Briscoe. Start off with Denny Hamlin. They had a great race car yesterday. They had a fast car. They ran up front. They led laps. They won both stages. He took the lead late from Chase Elliott at the end of stage 1 and got him the stage win and the points that he needed to help build the cushion to get back to Ross Chastain in case somebody else like Christopher Bell or anybody that was in a must-win situation were to win. He got stage 2, and it looked like he put himself in a position where he needed to do it. Then stage 3 came, and they were up front, but then they started losing spots because I think, as the track was beginning to cool down, other guys caught up to them. But also, they were having some slow pit stops, and those slow pit stops probably cost them a chance to win the race or at least finish inside the top 3. And they finished there, they would have gotten into the championship 4. But it didn't happen, and of course, with the move that Chastain made at the very end of the race, despite him and Hamlin bumping and banging a couple laps before Chastain pulled the bonsai move, Chastain's move got him by Hamlin at the line. Now, he didn't need to finish exactly ahead of Denny Hamlin. He had to at least finish a spot behind him, and Chastain would have gotten the tiebreaker based off of best finish from the races that we've had. I think the first race, and Chastain finished top 3 at Vegas. Hamlin didn't finish in the top 3, so that's where the tiebreaker came in. But Chastain got to the line first ahead of Hamlin, and Chastain got in. Hamlin did not have a problem with what Chastain did. He said, it is what it is. He said he kind of liked what Chastain did. It kind of, an aggressive move, but a move that you needed to do to benefit yourself and the team. So at least Hamlin showed maturity in that. But I'm just going to say it right now. I mean, this is like, how many more years, could Denny Hamlin be this consistent but still not, win a championship? He's not going to compete for it this year. In my opinion, folks, Denny Hamlin's never winning a Cup championship. He's going to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He's got a lot of races that he's won that's going to give him first ballot NASCAR Hall of Fame credentials, but this guy just can't not seem to win a championship. I'm not calling him the choker. I'm not calling him the Atlanta Falcons of NASCAR, but I'm just saying, it's just how many more years is this guy going to continue to be really good in the sport and yet still not win a championship? I mean, I still think Mark Martin is the greatest race car driver of all time to never win a championship, but Hamlin's a pretty close second, although you could say Junior Johnson and Carl Edwards belong in that conversation, which is true, but I just don't think Denny Hamlin's ever going to win a championship, and his years in the sport are winding down. I still think he could still be competitive, but, it's going to be really tough for this guy to win a championship in the next few years. Then we go to Ryan Blaney, who ran up front all day long and seemed to have at times a car that could win the race, challenging with the Gibbs cars and the Hendrick cars. But I think they just really battled a loose race car for most of the race. And late in the race, when everybody pitted and Blaney came on the radio and said some of the guys that stayed out were staying up front for a few laps, he was like, why couldn't we have stayed out? Maybe we could have stayed out and won this race. Well, I understand what he's saying, but I think those fresh tires would have got him anyways. But it was still a good season for Ryan Blaney. I mean, for him to make it to the round of 8 because he hasn't won a race this year is very impressive itself. But he's got one more opportunity to win in 2022 next week at Phoenix, a track where he's been good at in the past. But, looks like Ryan Blaney fans are heading for a winless season, something they haven't experienced since his rookie campaign in 2016. He's won, the past couple years. But this year, it's just been one of those years for him. William Byron, a guy who won here in the spring, I thought like he was going to be a guy that could make it to the championship 4. He came in this race 5 points above. However, he qualified 25th in qualifying. I'm like, that's going to hurt him in the race. And it kind of did. He wasn't really able to pass a lot of guys. He got to the top 15 at one point. He was still stuck in traffic. He eventually got lapped at the end of stage 1, but he got his lap back. Or was it stage 2? It was one of the stages. He got lapped, but he got his lap back. But it was still tough for him to kind of pass guys. He was able to take on some tires late, and he was able to pass a few more guys. He got up to 7th place. Unfortunately, it's not enough for him to move on to the championship 4. But I feel like it's still been a very impressive year for the 24 team. His first multi-win season in his entire Cup Series career. He won earlier this year, obviously, at Martinsville. He won also earlier this year at another racetrack that I forget. But he still has had a very impressive season, year 2, with Rudy Fugle. I think they're going to be another team to watch out for next year. It's just something that's happened. If they didn't have the back qualifying effort, I think he could have been in a conversation for the race win, considering how good he's been at this racetrack and, the win that he had earlier this year. But it's just one of those things, and something you really can, it's pretty much out of your control. And Chase Briscoe, a guy who also came in like Christopher Bell in a must-win, it looked like he had a car at times yesterday that could challenge for the race win. He was up front. He got some stage points. Then when we had pit stops before the start of stage 2, Chase Briscoe removed equipment with the gas can, and that was a penalty, and that pinned him back in the pack. He lost a lap. He got his lap back, and he was able to work his way back up for 9th. But if that pit penalty didn't happen, what could have been the difference? Because in the practice charts, Chase Briscoe was very fast this week, and I felt like if someone's going to pull a walk-off win besides Christopher Bell, it's Chase Briscoe. But it just didn't happen. But what would have happened if this guy did win yesterday? He would have been going to the track where he won at earlier this year at Phoenix. He was really strong there. Unfortunately, he's not going to be a part of the championship for, which is a bummer. But in a very impressive year 2 for this guy at Stewart-Haas Racing, was the leading driver for Stewart-Haas pretty much all year. Better than Kevin Harvick, better than Eric Almirola, and Cole Custer. By the way, Cole Custer had a great run yesterday, top 5 all day, but fell back to 14th. But a good season nonetheless for Chase Briscoe. That guy's going to be a fun driver to watch these next couple years. He is the future of Stewart-Haas Racing. Number 4, Kyle Busch. Non-existent yesterday. I saw Kyle Busch struggle. I mean, struggle. There have been a couple races before where he struggled badly. I don't want to say the word struggle for this. He flat out quit yesterday. That car was terrible. Terrible. He was 4 laps down at the end of stage 1. That car was not good. I don't think he really even tried yesterday. I heard of the broadcast. I don't think he ever communicated to his team at all during the race. It doesn't sound like it. I mean, it was pretty much crickets on the radio the entire time. He finished 6 laps down to the 29th spot. I mean, I feel like he's kind of, done at this point as far as with Joe Gibbs. Remember, next week is his final race with Joe Gibbs Racing before he moves on to Richard Childress Racing next year. But I kind of expected Kyle Busch to put up a fight yesterday. I think he'll put up a fight next week in his final race with Joe Gibbs Racing. If not, then it's like he's really saying, that this relationship with JGR at the very end is just not, it's not gone well. So it really bummer performance yesterday by that 18 team. I mean, they just did not show up whatsoever. And number 5, the men moving on, as we mentioned, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and Chase Elliott are the 4 men competing for the championship next weekend. Now, obviously, I've talked about Bell and Chastain. Joey Logano came into this race really with no worries. He was the only guy before entering the race knowing he was in based off of the win at Las Vegas. They had a good race car. They weren't really contending for the race win for the most part. They were hovering around the top 10, top 15. They had to remove a little bit of a fire issue on pit road in the start of stage 3, but he was able to rally back and finish in the 6th position. Obviously, the win guaranteed him a spot from Vegas guaranteed him a spot, so he really had nothing to worry about yesterday. Chase Elliott, he came into this race needing to have at least a good run and get some stage points. When he took the lead towards the lower part of stage 1 yesterday from his teammate Kyle Larson, I felt like, here comes the 9 in Martinsville. He's got something for him, and he was leading, and then Hamlin took the lead late. Elliott was able to finish second in both stages yesterday. That was a total of 18 stage points. Those 18 stage points really helped it, but they were a top 3 car the entire day. I just feel like that when the track began to cool down, they were kind of, losing the handling. The car got tight. They slipped back a couple of spots, and they fell all the way back in the field, and they, was able to, dodge some of the chaos that was bumping and banging bound for the win. It's kind of, I think, safe that they finished in the 10th position. Actually, they finished 11th, but post-race, the 6th car, Brad Keselowski, that originally finished in the top 5, was disqualified for failing post-race. So the 9 car in return gets a 10th place finish. So, I mean, it wasn't really, these playoffs have been kind of shaky for the 9 car, but winning the regular season championship and all those races in the summer is what helped get them to this point, and at least being consistent enough has allowed them to compete for this championship next weekend. Now, because of Chastain's move, they're not in the owner's title. He kind of wanted to be in the owner's championship, but he's still going to be racing for a driver's championship nonetheless. So, good job by all 4 of these guys to survive the playoffs and do what they needed to do to get to where they are. And they are headed to a championship battle next weekend at Phoenix. A couple other notes to make note of. Bubba Wallace returned from his 1-race suspension, being absent last week because of the Las Vegas incident with Kyle Larson, retaliating, dumping him, and shoving him on the racetrack. Was really suspended for what he did on the racetrack, not what he did to Kyle Larson after he climbed out of the car. He was suspended for 1 race. He was able to get back in the car this weekend. He was greeted with a lot of boos from the crowd, but he put that aside and had a great run yesterday. They ran in the top 10, top 15 for the most part, came away with an 8th place finish. Not a bad job by Bubba. He's run well here before. He has 2 truck wins, and he's definitely knows how to get around this racetrack. And also, Alex Bowman announced that he will get back in the 48 car next weekend for the final race of the season at Phoenix. Of course, Bowman has been inactive ever since the Texas crash where he backed the car into the wall and sustained concussion-like symptoms in the process. He had to miss the previous couple races, and that missing those races eliminated him from the playoffs. and it's been Noah Gragson ever since. Bowman will be back in the car next weekend, and that's a good sign considering, what we've seen this year with drivers with concussions like Kurt Busch, and he has not been back in the car and is obviously not coming back at all this year and is retiring full-time from competition. But having Alex Bowman back next week really helps and shows that, he was able to have a nice, quick recovery process, and he's going to be able to get back behind the wheel of the 48 car next Sunday. So it'll be good to have Alex Bowman back at the track in the race car. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 35 races are done, and one race remains. Next weekend is the final weekend of the NASCAR season. I know, grab the tissues. It's going to be a sad, sad way to end the season with just one race left in all three series. All three series will decide who is going to be champion in each series this upcoming weekend. We got Friday night with the trucks, Saturday late afternoon, early evening with the Xfinity series, and mid-afternoon with the Cup series. For the Cup series, 4 men, 2 of them, former champs, looking for championship number 2, both of them. The other 2, they're looking for their first Cup championship. It should be an entertaining battle between 2 Chevys, a Toyota and a Ford, to battle for the Bill France Cup next Sunday in Phoenix for the season finale 500. Who will come out on top? Will it be one of the most polarizing drivers, really, the last couple years in Joey Logano? Will it be the sport's most popular driver in Chase Elliott? Will it be the closer of the playoffs in Christopher Bell? Or Mr. Bonsai / Mr. Aggressive Ross Chastain as the 2022 Cup champion? I cannot wait for this finale next Sunday. We have a championship battle on our hands. The average age of these 4 drivers racing for the championship, 28 and a half. That's really, really young. We've got a great group of drivers that are racing for the championship this upcoming Sunday, and I cannot wait. So who will it be? I will bring my predictions of who I think is going to win the championship, as well as the background of all 4 drivers this week, and preview what I think is going to happen. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and also, because today is October 31st, have a happy Halloween, everybody. Get those candies and watch out for the spookies. Woo! But anyways, have a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and once again, congrats to Christopher Bell on the win, and congrats to him, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, and Ross Chastain on advancing into the Championship 4 in Phoenix. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Let's go racing!